actually called her respectability into question. If she were a man, and if she believed in duelling, a truly barbaric practice that was long overdue for dying out, she'd have called him out. As it was, she was a lady, and would pay no attention to the slurs of a man who had proved himself to have very little claim upon the title of gentleman. Turning her back on him, she hoisted her trunk of books with some difficulty, letting the exhale of exertion hiss through her teeth, lest he realized just how much effort it took, and carried it and her valise to a table not so very far from his. She'd have gone farther, but she greatly feared that she would drop the trunk, embarrassing herself before her nemesis. No sooner had she collapsed as genteelly as she could into her chair than the innkeeper appeared at her side, his narrowed, bushy brows, his smile less than polite.
"This tap-room is for paying customers only, miss,"
Mr. Stepney said, with a pointed look at her trunk, as if it was taking up a seat that was also meant for paying customers.
"If you would like to hire a room for the night, I'll just take your payment now."
Well aware that Lord Kerr and the rest of the dining-room were watching with interest, she mentally calculated the amount of money in her purse, which she feared was not enough for even the smallest room here. Her passage on the mail coach had used the bulk of her funds, and her father had insisted that travelling with a full purse would invite cut-pursers and pickpockets to prey upon her, or so he'd said. She rather suspected it was another attempt on his part to keep her from leaving, but she'd called his bluff and gone anyway. Smiling up hopefully at the proprietor, she said, "You seem like far too kind a man to eject a lady from your establishment, Mr. Stepney, is it? I assure you I will only be here for a little while. I am expecting a carriage from Beauchamp House near Little Seaford this afternoon." A bald-faced lie, but she was desperate. It was bad enough for a lady travelling alone to fend off the rough customers of a tap-room, but if he forced her into the inn-yard, she didn't like her chances of surviving unscathed. The innkeeper frowned, but before he could respond, she felt a presence at her back.
"She will be travelling with me, Stepney," said Lord Kerr smoothly. "We are both bound for Beauchamp House, so I thought it best to spare her the indignities of the mail coach."
Stepney's look of suspicion turned into a leer as he glanced between the Marquess and Ivy.
"Very well, my lord. Will you be needing another room, then?"
It was clear from his tone that he thought the question unnecessary.
"I don't think so,"
Kerr said to Ivy's shock. If the ill-tempered Marquess thought that she would let him get away with ruining her reputation, then he was sorely mistaken. She opened her mouth to set the innkeeper straight, but the Lord Kerr continued.
"I've hired a carriage for the drive so that we can leave in a short while. My own is in need of further repair, so I will leave my coachman to see to it from here. Miss Wareham may have a place in the hired coach in it. For propriety's sake, I'll join my valet in the second carriage."
Ivy could not have been more shocked if he'd casually announced that he drank the blood of virgins and howled at the moon. She'd judged him wrongly, she supposed, at least when it came to his desire to ruin her reputation. But as soon as Mr. Stepney had stepped away, the Marquess said in a low voice only she could hear, "I'll not risk any damage to your reputation, lest I find myself at the other end of your father's pistol, being forced into a marriage with you. That is just what this farce needs to make it an actual circus." She clenched her teeth, anger making her hands shake. "I wouldn't marry you if you were wrapped in gold and carrying every last missing fragment of Greek poetry," she spat.
"Then we are in agreement on something, it would seem," he sneered. "And if you are wondering why I am in such a generous mood, it's because I won't have you ruining my good name in these parts. My family has owned property here for hundreds of years, and we are well known in the district. And the sooner we get to Beauchamp House and speak to my aunt's fraud of a solicitor, the sooner I can get back to London and get on with my life."
"I might have known you'd be playing dog in the manger with Beauchamp House," Ivy said, shaking her head in disgust. "You don't want me or the other ladies to have it, but you don't actually want it for yourself either. Just another family property to languish empty while you and the other Beauchamps live your lives in your actual homes. What a charming portrait of aristocratic generosity you paint."
"I'd mind my tongue if I were you, Miss Wareham."